The last train. It was the last train of the night, and James had been waiting for it for what felt like hours. He had missed the earlier trains, and now he was alone on the platform, shivering in the cold winter night. As the train approached, James let out a sigh of relief. He stepped onto the carriage and found a seat near the back. The train was nearly empty, with only a few passengers scattered throughout the carriage. James settled into his seat, feeling grateful to finally be on his way home. He closed his eyes, hoping to catch a quick nap before he arrived at his destination. But then he heard a strange sound. It was a low growling noise coming from somewhere in the carriage. James opened his eyes and looked around, but he couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. The growling sound grew louder, and James began to feel uneasy. He tried to ignore it, thinking it was probably just the sound of the train, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Suddenly, the train jolted to a stop, and the lights flickered. James looked around in confusion, trying to figure out what was happening. That's when he saw it. A figure emerged from the darkness, slowly making its way down the aisle towards him. It was a creature, unlike anything James had ever seen before. It had long, sharp claws, and its eyes glowed in the dim light. James froze, too scared to move. The creature approached him, its growls getting louder and more menacing. James closed his eyes, bracing himself for the worst. But then the train lurched forward again, and the lights flickered back on. James opened his eyes to find himself alone in the carriage. He couldn't believe what had just happened, wondering if it had all been a dream. When James arrived at his stop, he stumbled out of the train, feeling shaken and disoriented. He turned around to get a last glimpse of the train, but it had already disappeared into the night. James never spoke of the incident to anyone, thinking that no one would believe him anyway. But every time he passed by the train station at night, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread and unease, wondering if the creature still lurked inside the last train. Years went by, and James had nearly forgotten about the strange encounter on the last train. He had moved on with his life, getting a new job and starting a family. One night, he was walking home from work, taking a shortcut through an alleyway. As he turned the corner, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The same creature from the last train was standing in front of him, growling and snarling. James froze, unable to move, as the creature started to approach him. But this time, James was prepared. He had always regretted not reporting the incident to the authorities, so he had started to carry a small camera with him everywhere he went. As the creature got closer, James took out his camera and snapped a photo. The creature let out a terrifying howl and lunged at him, but James managed to dodge out of the way and run. He rushed home, still shaking from the encounter, and uploaded the photo to his computer. It was blurry and indistinct, but he could clearly see the creature's glowing eyes and sharp claws. James sent the photo to the local police department, along with a description of the creature and the story of his encounter on the last train. The police were skeptical at first, but James was persistent, sending them more and more evidence. Eventually, the police agreed to investigate, and they found evidence of strange activity on the last train. They searched the train and found claw marks on the walls and floors, along with strange substances that they couldn't identify. The police never found the creature, but James was satisfied that he had finally been able to bring his story to light. From that day forward, he never took the last train again, but he always made sure to carry his camera with him, just in case.